Stop stealing written on a little piece of paper. Cold turkey's what I thought. I said goodbye to my neighbor. I'm a little frantic, can't pull you no favors, but I'll smoke all of your weed and leave you with no papers. Smoke around my room, I'm a fly in a graveyard. I got enough to eat, and as for company, I don't have to go too far. Crashed my car last week and walked out with a new scar. I got people looking out for me, I guess I set a new bar. I never get that hurt, I guess you call that good luck. But if I'm writing honestly, I've never felt so stuck. I've been looking for work, but can't get past the loading truck. And school's just not for me, I'm in enough debt from my other bluffs.
Welcome everybody.
Welcome tonight.
We are back.
It is
back.
a
It is
SchuBros
a
night.
SchuBros
Kyle and I
night.
are over here.
We are hemming.
And we are hemming.
And we are hawing.
And we are hawing.
It is the SchuBros.
Kyle,
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing really good, man.
Really good,
Still
man.
alive,
Still
still
kicking.
alive,
I know
still
we took
kicking.
a week off.
Had some technical
difficulties
on
We took
your behalf.
We took
a mandatory week off.
Yeah. So, but we're here tonight. So that we don't get fined, ladies and gentlemen.
We're not going to
We're
get
not
fined.
going to get
Luke
fined.
here, so
I know
don't
you're
get
watching. I
fined.
know you're
Don't get fined.
watching. Don't fine us, bro.
Don't fine us,
We're back.
bro.
Okay,
We're back.
We're back.
Okay,
We're
we're
back.
just here so we don't get
here
fined.
so we don't get fined.
Where's my Skittles? Where's my Skittles? So yeah,
So,
I mean,
yeah,
so for
I
anybody
mean,
who
so
doesn't
for anybody who
understand
doesn't
what we're talking
understand
about,
my computer went boom.
and
Basically what happened.
We went boom, bro. And so we had no way to stream. We had no way to do anything. Everything was saved on that computer that we use. And so Kyle and I have talked about this on the show. I get to dictate what the show looks like because I make it on my computer. And Kyle doesn't have a say in it because it's not on his. So he can go F himself. But when it came to this, when my computer went shit, it kind of meant we didn't have a way to do anything. And so we are coming to you live tonight via a rather unique method. And I don't know that we're the first people to ever do this, Kyle.
I'll put money on that we're not.
Okay, but I'm gonna put money on the fact that we're in the minority. We're in the minority of people who have podcast shows who utilize Amazon virtual machines. So I literally have other computers, but none of them are capable of doing what we need to do for the show. Computing. They're all relatively. I just noticed we probably had a really bad echo there, so I think I got rid of the echo. If we had an echo, I apologize.
Yeah, we're echoing pretty bad.
Okay, so give it 10 seconds. I saw that I had one of ours unmuted, and so I muted the other one of us because we're coming through on the same audio link here. So okay, it should go away very quickly. All right,
let's hope and pray and hope.
So sorry about that. But at least you can hear us
and hope and pray.
At least you can see us, which is kind of the point of what we've been trying to do here, because there's been some technical difficulties over the last few days. We've had some issues getting things working. We have a new computer. It's on its way. It's coming. It will be here soon. But at the present moment, it's not here, which means we can't use it. So we are utilizing an Amazon web-based server as a virtual machine, and we are broadcasting ourselves into it and rebroadcasting ourselves version of that. So please bear with us if there's any technical difficulties. This is the first time we've done this. It could go horribly. So,
I mean, we troubleshot on the fly the very first real issue, which was the repeating ourselves situation. So hopefully now that that's taken care of, the rest of the stream will be fine. I don't know if it was just you or you and me, but I'm glad I put my headphones on when I did in order to catch that so that we could fix that. Otherwise, we might have gone the whole episode like we did with Trevor Aldridge that time. And yeah, that wasn't fun.
Yeah, and that's kind of sad because, okay, we don't like when interviews don't go well. We want the interviews to go well. We want to be able to say we did a good job, and we want people. And so this is one of those things where it's like, okay, it didn't particularly go like we wanted it to, but we are figuring this shit out on the fly. So
speaking of things that didn't really go how we intended them to go, should I go ahead and mention my Wednesday night performance?
Well, I'm actually. Give me 2 fucking seconds, and I'll have a window to go to there if you just wait, jackass.
Well, I was gonna preface it with while you were pulling it up, so okay. I was going to cover for you while you were looking for it.
Well, I've got it downloaded now. It's just a matter of getting it into the scene. But yeah, you can go ahead and tell the people what you did.
All right. So last Wednesday night, as we had discussed previously. I went ahead and went over to Five Knocks Speakeasy in downtown Bryan, who hosts a weekly comedy show. And I grew a pair of brass ones and got up on stage and went ahead and did a performance. Now, it didn't go how I planned it in my head. But at the same time, I didn't write anything down. It was all from memory. It was all from, just spontaneous me telling the stories, because I'm more of a storyteller. The way I tell stories is humorous to people, so I figured I'd give it a go. Well, I told my first story, went okay, got some laughs. Told my second story about you shooting Amanda with a BB gun and how Dad whooped your ass, and got a few laughs out of it. And then I just brain farted, and I couldn't remember where to go. So Charles, our other brother, was in the audience with my wife. And he shouted out, a suggestion, something that he sent me in the mail. And I told that story. And I'm really the butt of that story. It's not really a joke I would tell per se. It's more of his joke to tell. But it is a funny story. And then I was able to kind of transition from there into another thing. But I definitely learned some lessons on it. It's like, A, you got to pause and let people laugh. Because I was just so nervous. I was just trying to get everything out. I wasn't really allowing for comedic response. I wasn't allowing that pause for people to actually go ahead and enjoy the joke. So definitely learned that. And the other thing was, you gotta have a game plan. You've got to have something written down. You got to have a script. And because I didn't have that script, I brain farted. And because I brain farted, it was okay. But I definitely, left myself room for improvement. So I'm going to try again this week, although I think they have a headliner coming in, so I may or may not get selected as one of the open mic participants. So we'll see.
All right. So I am currently going through the process of getting because as this is a server, I don't have anything downloaded that can play that. So I'm currently in the process of doing that. So I'm downloading QuickTime so that I can do that.
Okay. But while you're doing that, I guess I can go ahead and talk about my running experience. So as the other thing that I'm working on right now is getting into better shape, which involves me training for a half marathon. So the app that I'm using is a Couch to 13.1 application. So it takes you from what now?
Half marathon.
Yeah, half marathon. So it takes you from having not done anything in forever and works you up until you're ready to go ahead and be, able to run a full half marathon. which is a weird way of saying that. So, the first week it was, just go out and run for this long, walk for this much, and then do that in a cycle. Well, I went from running 6 times and walking the same amount, like running for 3 minutes and then walking for 2 minutes, 6 times. So now it's built me all the way up to 8 times, which isn't, a huge increase, but it's, slowly progressing me. And 2 of the days out of the week, it has me do cross training and then 1 day of rest. So yes, today was my day of rest. So tomorrow will be my first day in week 3. And I believe it already kicks me up to 9 runs then. It's a 14-week cycle. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do at the end of the 14 weeks because the race that I'm wanting to participate in doesn't happen until December. So I'm either going to keep doing like the last 3 weeks over and over again, or maybe start training for the full, but just, only scale it back to where I don't do, that long of a run. So I'm making progress though. Last time I did the 8 attempts, or the 8 run periods, I ran 3.5 miles. So not bad for having not run in a long time. I was not running distance in a long time.
Holy crap. What damn file? Okay. So Kyle, it's not going to be played because apparently this .mov whatever bullshit, I can't find a player. Like QuickTime said it would play it, and then I went to play it, and it says you need additional software. And then I went to the Apple site.
Download VLC.
Okay. Yeah, I've had VLC player before. Yeah. Okay.
I'm surprised OBS wouldn't just play it.
I didn't. I honestly, I didn't try to just put it in the media folder. I could try maybe doing that. Let me see. Let's just do media source and see if I can put it in.
Okay.
I doubt it though.
We'll see.
I doubt it, bro.
So while you're doing that, the big news today was, and you wrote a very lengthy article, not very well proofread, but a lengthy article about the Title IX decision by the Supreme Court. Would you like to go ahead and discuss that a little bit while you're doing it, or would you rather me talk about it while you're trying?
So I'll talk about it because, I mean, this is a pretty... Okay, yeah, that's not working. So this is a pretty big deal. There's a lot of different things going on with this. And, okay, so let me preface this for the people who don't know what happened, because I think we need to start with what actually occurred. Okay, so a long time ago, there was a man who was transsexual. He walked into his place to work. He had a dress on, and his boss fired him for coming to work in a dress. So we all watched MASH. We all saw Radar. Radar kept trying to get fired. This guy got fired. Okay, so this guy thought he was a woman, dressed as a woman, wanted to live his life as a woman. He sued the employer, saying that was workplace discrimination. And the case has just kind of been in log for a long time. It's just kind of sat. And finally, we got enough instances of this kind of thing happening, enough instances of this type of discrimination, that the Supreme Court finally decided to hear the case. So what it was stemming on was Title VII under the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which says that an employer cannot discriminate against a person based on sex, religion, color, all these other things. So the employers in the case tried to say, well, it doesn't include sexual orientation or gender identity. And the people said, well, in it including sex, and saying the word sex, that it includes things about your sex or things about your sexuality. So today, this case was heard October of last year. So today we finally get the decision back. And it's 6-3 that the court decides, yes, we are going to say that the word sex does include anybody who has a sexual orientation or gender identity that is strange. So we're going to basically say that all of it is intertwined, that Congress, when Congress said
it's falling under the umbrella of sex.
Yeah, we're just gonna all put it together, and that way it's nice, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We've got it all together. So there's a couple things here. So number one, is I think this is the correct decision.
Same.
I think it's the correct decision because I don't think that there's a legitimate reason to ever discriminate against a person because of something about them, right? Like, I don't think discrimination is right regardless. I don't think you can discriminate against anybody. Now, I think this applies to everybody. I'm not saying that this is only for this person or this is only for this group of people. I think this is standard across the board. I think that if you are a person that's conservative like us, then you think that equal protection of the law means equal protection regardless of how we break it down. So I would have an issue, per se, if the courts came out and said, okay, the Catholic Church has to allow homosexual marriage to occur inside of its premises. That's a violation of my rights because I'm a Catholic, Kyle, you're Lutheran. We don't believe that in homosexual marriage. We believe it's sinful, therefore we don't believe. But let's be perfectly honest. The government's job is not to decide what is and is not a sin or who is and is not sinful. And then the second part of that is we are all sinful, right? So if you're saying that homosexuality is a sin, then what are you doing except casting a rock from your glass house? Because I guarantee you're sinful. And maybe, yes, homosexuality, I'll agree with you, it is a sin. But that's not on us to judge.
So is premarital sex. So is cussing. So is
the Lord's name in vain.
I mean, there's a variety of things that you could say is a sin, and no sin is, more or greater or less than any other sin in the eyes of God. Any sin is a sin, and you're unclean.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter how I sin or how you sin. It's just the matter that we all sin. But luckily for us, well, not really luckily, blessedly for us, Jesus Christ came down, served his sentence, and now sits at the right hand of God the Father. And because of him, we have the opportunity to go to heaven. Mm-hmm. But we don't have the right, and it even says explicitly in the Bible, we don't have the right to judge others. We're told to forgive not 7 times 7 times, but 7 times 77 times. I mean, there is a part that they do need to repent, but everyone sins. Everyone has their own issues. Everyone has their own vices and their own issue, things that they do that they're not proud of. So no one's getting to heaven because of their blameless record, and no one's getting to heaven because of good works. The only way to heaven is through faith, and faith alone. And multiple times that is stated in the Bible. So for us to sit back here as Judeo-Christians and say, because you're gay, you're wrong, and you're not going to heaven, that we don't know. We have no idea if someone's going to go to heaven or not. That is between them and God. There's no way for us to know if someone is truly going to be in heaven or not, and there's no way for us to know if someone's going to be in hell or not. Now, we have a pretty good inclination that Hitler and Mao and a few of those others are probably down there and enjoying some finer punishment series that are going on, but we have no way of truly knowing, and that's true of everybody. So it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, trans, blue, purple, green, yellow, whatever. It doesn't matter. It really depends upon your relationship with God, if you even have one. But it's not our place to sit here and tell you anything other than I love you as my neighbor. So that's the end of the story is love your neighbor as yourself. That's the greatest commandment that there is now since Jesus come. So I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to like what you're doing. I still have to love you though. So you're still my brother in Christ. So
well, and that's true of a couple of different things, right? Because here's the thing, right? We have to understand, and we've said this before, right? I want the right to be able to do things that are stupid. Okay, whether you think they're stupid or not, I want the right to be able to do those things because I think that they're good and right to do. And that's where we have to say, if I'm going to let somebody else do something that's incredibly stupid, if I'm going to say that you can do incredibly stupid things, then I can do incredibly stupid things. And maybe I think what you're doing is incredibly stupid. Maybe I think it's moronic what you're doing. It doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, if you're not affecting me, and I wrote this in the article, so for all of you who don't want to, so Kyle and I, for all of you who don't know, have a website. It's him-haw himandhaw.com. So him and Haw, you might, hey, why the did they choose that? All right. So Kyle and I, actually Kyle mostly, I'll give Kyle credit for this. This was mostly Kyle.
The first part I'll give you credit for because that was on you. The him was on you, and I just thought of something that would make sense to go with it.
Okay. So Kyle and I, of course, because we like to troll people on, well, I do. I like to troll people on Twitter, and I enjoy it, and I have a good time with it. We have been called morons on the show, or YouTube comments and Twitter and whatever else. And so I said, all right, well, I'm just a highly educated moron because I have a master's degree, soon to start studying for a PhD. Kyle has a degree. He went to a decent university. I mean, it was okay. I mean, it's not
tier one research, no big deal.
It's not like it's a private school, right? No. Like one of the oldest ones in the United States that lots of famous people have gone to. But yeah, it's okay. It's a Texas school. It is what it is.
SEC school too.
Lost server. I have no idea.
I was going to say you froze there for a half second.
I don't know if this means that the show is going to stop or not because the server is still running.
Should be good. Theoretically.
I mean, theoretically, the server.
Actually listening to the stream. I just have it up. I'm watching.
So okay, the server is back up, and everything is still where I left it. Okay, so the server. Okay, great. So the server kept running in the background, regardless of whether or not we were actually on it or not, which is good news. So we didn't lose anything. So for anybody who's watching,
I think we lost audio.
Did we lose audio? Maybe.
Yeah, we didn't lose video, but we lost audio.
Okay. Well, anyway. So what happened there for anybody? So for anybody who doesn't know what happened there, I'll explain it to you. I don't know what the fuck happened, but we lost that connection to the server.
I'm gonna explain what happened. I don't know what the fuck happened.
So I don't know what the fuck happened. We lost connection to the server all of a sudden. I'm using a remote desktop application to remote desktop into the server. It came up and said, "Oh, you've lost connection to the server." So I had to reconnect to the server in the remote desktop application. It doesn't take but a second. But everything was still running. So Kyle's saying that we lost audio for a minute, which, okay, maybe that happened. But at least the stream continued, and we were able to get back to it relatively quickly without losing much.
Okay, so back to the him and Haw. So you came up with the him, I came up with the Haw. Lagged out, and you probably lost connection to the server again.
I'm here.
Okay,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, it came back up. So we're back on the server. I don't know what's going on here. I'm hardwired into my computer internet-wise.
No idea, buddy. Maybe Suddenlink out there is having a little glitch in the matrix.
Well,
I think we're good. So we're good to go. So you came up with him because we're highly educated morons, and I came up with Haw because
I see what happened. I got what happened.
What'd you do?
So I guess I slightly pulled out my Ethernet cable from my wife's laptop. It switched to Wi-Fi. And when it switched to Wi-Fi, that's when we lost connection to the server. I got a decent Wi-Fi connection in here, but not as, of course it's not as stable as when I'm hardwired.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So you came up with him, the highly educated morons. And I came up with the Haw because back in the country, that's, we were hemming and hawing. We're having fun. We're laughing out. We're laughing and having a good time. We're hemming and hawing. So I was like, all right, so you already came up to him. Let's brainstorm on what could be Haw. And since we're country and a little bit of redneck, I was like, all right, well, we could be hunting, ammo, and whiskey. Now the W, I'm not gonna lie, we workshopped that one a few times. Like we were trying to make it political.
It took a hot minute.
We tried whip because you have the whip in the Congress who goes around and whips up the support for his party, but with all the political shit that's going on right now and the things that are happening and everywhere, riot wise, we thought whip might call back to antebellum days, and We didn't really want to do that since our family wasn't even here until the late 1800s.
Yeah, it didn't seem fair to saddle us with that white guilt.
Yeah. So then we tried a couple other things, and finally we just settled on whiskey because we both like to drink whiskey, bourbon, Scotch, whiskey, whatever it may be, Irish. It doesn't matter. We like it. If it goes down good, then it goes down good. That's all that matters.
All right. So we are going to try to play this video, and we're
literally going to hem and haw at ourselves.
I mind you,
this is an experiment.
So here we go. First things first. Can you hear us? Yeah, first things first on the realist. So I'm going to see if I can hear ourselves. Come back here, mouse. Where are you?
Come back.
Baby, come back to
I
me.
see the OBS screen on the stream.
All right.
Hi, y'all, Kyle.
Okay, here we go. It seems to be working.
Anybody y'all ever heard of that? Yeah. Did you get pulled over?
Look at that fat boy.
Hey, it's Fat Boy. Oh, wait, that's me.
Because I got pulled over for going 70 to 60. And that's the only reason they know, because it's one of those blinky you miss it towns.
Kyle, next time you record a video,
It wasn't me.
you know, horizontal.
It wasn't me.
So, y'all ever been to Chewy's? Like, you've got that sign on the front that says, if you've been to one Chewy's, you've been to one Chewy's.
Yeah, you can hear us talking.
And that means, like, every one of them is a little unique, a little different. They don't go to the exact same. Well, that's how my routines are going to be.
I will say, Kyle, your audio here.
It was Charles recording it, and I got told after the fact that I had the microphone too far away. For the first time in my life, I got accused of not being loud.
So my parents found two ways to make sure I did good in school. The first was, if I got anything called at school, the teacher was allowed to whoop my ass, and then my parents would come up to school and whoop my ass in front of all my friends. That's pretty good motivation to stay straight. The second was, if you wanted to play sports, you had to make all A's. No B's, no C's, all A's, 4.0, or you weren't playing sports. So make sure.
Nobody cares about you. Just worry about me.
Otherwise, they didn't play sports. And growing up out there, third grader, I was playing on the 8th grade team.
Nobody cares about you. Just worry about me.
So, had to be good at sports, but it had to be good at sports, but it had to be good at school to be able to play sports. So, you know, I always wanted to be able to do things.
Hey. I was good at sports up until about 11th grade.
Being out
Good
there,
at sports.
you also have
Lincoln.
other things to do.
Where
You know, not a lot of
competition
people don't have sexes other than
literally not
watch the
existent.
grass grow and go hunting.
Whatever. I was good at sports in high school
And
too.
drink beer, apparently.
I lettered
I'll tell you, my brother
multiple times. Multiple sports.
He's back there going, yes. I didn't mean to be distracted, so I don't pay attention to what I'm saying. Yeah, doing what he does.
Yeah. The only thing I can definitely say is the next time you record a video, or anybody records a video of
You're more likely to have
landscape skateboarding, and then makes it super hard to watch.
back then, we did a lot of hunting.
Between that,
One of the
very,
funny stories
very
I
bad audio.
was me and my dad.
Yeah, they sat in the back.
And we're out in the field.
Couldn't get up front and support me. No, they sat in the back.
Because his dad's trying to babysit. And the little brother got given a BB gun. Not that little brother, the other one. The little brother got given a BB gun, and his sister was there, and she didn't have anything. She just wanted to be there. So the little sister starts just singing. I don't know what song she was singing, but apparently she was singing it really badly, and she would not shut up. So the little brother told her, if you don't shut up, I'm going to shoot you with this BB gun. She goes,
If you don't shut up, I'm going to shoot you with the BB gun. There's a real...
Actually happened.
And at the angle he was at, it bounced up and hit her right above the eye.
that I meant when I said.
And she just goes to squalling. I mean, you've never heard anything so catastrophic.
Told her 3 times I'd shoot her, and on the 3rd time, I shot.
So me and my dad run back to the truck to see what the hell's going on because we don't understand. And we get there and she's just, and that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. My dad took that BB gun, grabbed it by the barrel.
I got you laughing, so at least I got something.
I was there for this. I remember the ass whipping. I do. I mean,
Smacked again. That shit was hilarious. I was 7, 8, 9 years old, somewhere in that frame. And little brother was always the one who was
pause it real quick.
Shit, get away with it.
Go ahead.
So I messed up right here. I should have transitioned because there was a little girl in the front who just got like white faced when I told this joke about you getting your butt whooped. Like, oh my God, someone spanked their child. How dare they? I should have transitioned right there to the story about how you broke my rib.
Yeah.
Had I transitioned to that story right then and there, they would have not felt bad for you at all. Never again would they have felt bad for you.
Okay, so in my defense, I'm going to stick to this story. In my defense, you got your rib broken because of your own dumb fault.
I know that.
I was protecting somebody, and in the process, broke your rib.
No. That's not the story I broke where you broke my rib. The story where you broke my rib is when we were laying concrete. You weren't protecting nobody, nor my eyeballs. After I repeatedly asked you to pull your pants up, young man.
No. Okay. So let's tell this story and put it in context for everybody.
All right. So Dad is cheap. You got to know this first and foremost. Dad had 4 kids, not because he loves us and we're the light of his life. No, each one of us is slave labor. We worked our asses off at that ranch, and he just kept having us so that he had more labor. And that's not 100% true, but it's funny to say it that way.
Yeah, it makes it sound bad.
Yeah. So we started the quail hunting operation with him, and after a few years, we had gotten enough dogs that it really needed somewhere to put them so that they didn't out in the elements. We needed to be somewhere where they were safe. They couldn't get out. Some, couldn't get loose, go chasing shit, get lost, whatever it may be. So we built kennels for them. And one of the best ways to build a kennel for a dog is to do it with concrete, because little known fact, fleas and ticks.
There you go.
I was trying to combine those at the same time. Do not have the ability to live on concrete. So you and I were put in charge of making and laying the concrete. I got charge of making the concrete. You got charge of laying the concrete or smoothing the concrete. So I'm sitting there with a wheelbarrow, a water hose, and bag after bag after bag of sackcrete. And you're sitting there with a ladle, trowel, and bricks and
a shit ton of bricks.
And bricks and a few other things to help smooth it. So I'm mixing the concrete, you're smoothing it out. But you're not wearing a belt, and I don't think you were wearing underwear either. So your ass was just on display.
Yeah, but okay.
So I asked you numerous times, pull up your pants, I'm tired of looking at your asshole. Pull up your pants, I'm tired of looking at your asshole.
That's my best feature.
Yeah, whatever. So after about 6, 7 times, I told you, boy, if you don't pull up your pants, I'm going to make you pull up your pants. You know you're not. I was like, all right. I took the water hose and I shoved it straight down your ass crack. And the second I did, you reached for a brick and I went, oh shit. And I started hauling ass. Yeah. I'm running.
So Kyle brought a water hose to a brick fight.
Pow! Right there in the rib, man. Oh, still to this day, when I cough sometimes, I get a little pain. It hurts, yes.
So for a large part of our childhood, I had dreams and aspirations of, being a major league pitcher or NFL quarterback. Of course, neither of those things were ever anywhere close to ever occurring. But I had set myself to it. And so I would go out and either throw baseball into a tire over and over and over and over again from various distances and peg inside this tire just over and over and over again. I could throw from any distance, put the baseball inside the tire. Or my other favorite thing to do was, we had a lot of oak trees around our house. I would take a football and I would throw them at the oak trees. And I would pick spots on the trees and try to see if I could pass it to it, and sometimes it's okay, I'm passing it over this limb and hitting that one or whatever, learning how to really control the flight of the ball. So I can throw things with fairly pinpoint accuracy. And I got a fairly strong arm. I can throw things pretty hard. And Kyle's ribs found that out. Now, there's one other time that Kyle found this out, which this was more, okay, you earned that one. This other time was kind of just more me being a dick. So my friends,
every other time, you mean?
Every other time. Yeah. So we were down at our grandmother has a cabin, and it's a nice little area, and we're down there. And it might have been my birthday or something, and my friends were there. And we were kind of screwing around, whatever. And we were throwing the football around. And Kyle was walking up and he was carrying something. I don't know what it was. And my friends were kind of looking at me like, because they knew that I was a fairly accurate with throwing a football.
I was walking away.
And so I decided that as Kyle was walking, that I would peg him with the football. And I hit him square in the temple. and I mean, it was a good 40, 50 foot throw. I'm not going to say yard. It wasn't yard. It was 40 to 50 feet, maybe 20 yards, maybe 25 yards. And I hit him pretty square right in the temple. And I made a really good spiral, hits him right in the side of the head as he's walking. He has no idea it's coming. And it is just tunk. And he lays down on the ground. And I thought I killed him. And it was pretty funny.
No, it really wasn't.
It was really
someone
funny.
Walking away. Shit. I mean, I guess that parlays into what happened in Georgia. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. I guess we're never going to get away from this shit, are we?
No.
Just week after fucking week. It's always something. So, Georgia.
It'd be nice if it wasn't, man.
Yeah. Okay. So this one's a little different. Kyle was hashtag walking away.
Yep.
Walking away. I'll be honest, your dad was over. Okay. So here's what happens in Georgia. And I've watched this video. And the video is disturbing, of course, because a man dies in the video. But there's two angles. It's pretty clear to see what happens. A guy was asleep in his car. Happened to be black. Was inebriated. Went to a Wendy's. Because as you do, right? You go get you some chicken nuggets and some French fries. Try to soak up some of that alcohol in your stomach. Okay. Falls asleep in the drive-thru line. So we have not two things here. Number one, he's already endangered people's lives because he was drinking and driving. So he's already a public danger. You can say he wasn't. He was. Then he falls asleep in the Wendy's drive-thru. So now he's pissing off all the guys trying to get their smoothies, right? Their shakes. So somebody calls a cop and says, hey, there's somebody asleep in his car in the Wendy's drive-thru. The cops show up. They knock on the window. They say, hey, sir, how's everything going? And they say, okay, we're going to conduct a field sobriety test. They conduct a field sobriety test. The Jen fails the field sobriety test. They attempt to arrest the man for failing the field sobriety test so that they can take him to jail. Then the man decides to whoop the ever-living shit out of the two cops and succeeds. And he whipped their ass. I mean, it was a pretty convincing ass whooping. And then somehow in the scuffle, manages to get the officer's taser out of his hand and take it away from him. So you can say the officer didn't deserve to be fired. Okay, he didn't deserve to be fired for that, but he deserved to be fired for getting his ass handed to him that badly because he got his ass whooped. Then the guy gets up because he's now free and he has the cop's taser and starts running away. As he runs away, the officers get up to take pursuit. You can clearly see the man turn around with the taser, point it at the cop, and fire. At which point, the cop shoots him 3 to 4 times. I can't remember exactly. And the man dies. They took him to the hospital. They performed surgery. He died. So the officers immediately rendered aid as soon as it occurred. So my first thoughts on this are, number one, they probably didn't have to shoot him, but I can understand and justify why they did. I'm not going to say they had. I'm not going to say it was a requirement, but I'm going to say that I understand that they did it and why they did it. Because A, they just got their ass handed to them. This is obviously a violent person. And B, he fired something at them. So in the heat of the moment, very easily they could have said, I didn't know that it was the taser. I thought maybe he had a gun. Maybe he pulled a gun out of his waistband. We don't know, right? The cops are in the moment. They're doing what they need to do. So they turn.
As our friend Topher points out in some of his TikToks, in Georgia code, a taser is considered a deadly weapon because it's a projectile and it has the ability to.
They are advertised as such. It's a less lethal weapon. It's not a less than lethal weapon. It's a less lethal weapon than a gun, but it still has the propensity. If you hit somebody and you hit them right and it fucking shorts out their heart, they're going to die.
Yeah. So with that said, the cops were within their rights to return fire. Should they have? That's another story.
It's always debatable, right? That's always hindsight's 20/20 kind of situation. Again, this is a case where we weren't there. Nope. It wasn't us. So it's hard to say it's always easy to justify looking at a video and breaking it down still frame by still frame by still frame and saying, oh, well, at this moment, yeah, great. That's easy to do now.
That's not heat of the battle.
That's not heat of the battle. These cops just got their ass handed to them. This guy turns around, and the ballistics will probably, I assume, show that he got hit in the side just by the way he was turned. He probably got hit in the side. I doubt he got hit square back, but that'll be, a little bit of a telltale sign. But this is a case where I can understand why the cops did it. The person was armed. He was definitely resisting arrest. There's no doubt about that. You can argue in the George Floyd case, even though he did resist the arrest early, that by that point in time, he was subdued. He was no longer resisting arrest. There was no need to continue doing as much as the cop did in that case, what Officer Chauvin did in that case. In this case, there really is no argument against that because the cops got their ass handed to them. They got their butt whooped. And the guy was going to run off. And I know there's a lot of people who said, oh, well, he was just going to run off and do, and they could have just pursued him. And then what? Like, where was he going to go? Who was he going to hurt in the process? Was he going to take a hostage? We don't know. These are all hindsight or 20/20 questions, right? If he runs to the next car and grabs a little kid and takes it hostage, then this is a different story, right? Now we're happy that the cops did what they did, but we don't know this. We can't prove any of this. And again, before we get into what he did in his past, the past doesn't matter. We can talk about what just happened. He got belligerent, fought the cops, didn't want to go to jail, grabbed their taser, and took off and run. Pretty much, if you are ever taught how to deal with a cop, this is everything you're taught not to do.
Yeah, it's just sad. The whole situation's sad. And then what's weird / funny / messed up about the whole situation is they burnt that Wendy's down.
Yeah. Because what
does that accomplish? Yeah, they didn't do anything wrong. They literally just called the cops for someone being asleep in their to-go line or their takeout line. I mean, so the next night the protesters come and burn the Wendy's down, which makes perfect sense. Pro tip to the pyrotechnic that decided to do this. If you're going to light a building on fire, maybe wear some kind of disguise if you're going to be on video. Put on a mask. Wear some indistinguishable clothing. Do something that makes yourself not so identifiable. Because this girl just goes up there and lights a shit and throws it in and boof, there it goes. If she's not caught within 24 hours, that's a shitty police department. But then again, they are a little busy right now.
So it's been so long since we've done anything because of our technical difficulties and because Luke refused to help us with the virtual machine.
Yeah, thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Luke. It's all your fault. So anyway, there's so much that's gone on. So we've had
hopefully Luke knows we love him.
Yeah.
Since he's in the chat.
So we had the David Dorn case, which was a police officer in St. Louis, the retired police chief who was murdered over some televisions. They have now arrested his killer and now have today arrested another person in connection with that. So it was all on video. They've got the people again. You said, hey, don't do it if it's in plain daylight and you're wide open. Yeah. So they did that. So they caught him and he's gonna go spend the rest of his life in jail. I hope. I don't know if Missouri has the death penalty, but if they do, I highly recommend they use it.
Yeah.
Wendy's lives matter. Yeah, because let's be fair. In that neighborhood, who likely worked at that Wendy's?
Right. Go with more than likely a decent concentration of minorities.
Yeah. So they no longer have jobs, which helps them super much. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme. And the Babylon Bee had an article about this. It's like we talked about the other day. The Babylon Bee is getting to the point where, is this satire or is it not? had a post about how the KKK and leftists, tolerant, white liberal elites are now, posing for pictures together while burning down black neighborhoods because they finally found common ground.
Well, they found something they agree on.
Yeah, which is apparently screw over the black community because they don't deserve to be happy.
So we can't pick on Luke
biggest bullshit.
Because as he just reminded me,
he has our live stream.
He has the ability to end the server if he wants to, because this is all in his name. So if he really wanted to, he could just go and stop our server from running completely.
Hey, Luke, just for reference, since I know you're so worried / concerned about this, the stream health is amazing. We have not had a single warning since starting this. So
yeah,
and it looks pretty good.
Yeah. Funnily enough, when you ramp up a server to run a podcast, it works. We still haven't got that GPU figured out. Still working on that. We're supposed to have one. If we're not paying for it, we're paying for it. So we can go down to a package that doesn't include a GPU if we're not using it anyway, and just get more cores, right? Because if I'm not using the GPU and I'm just using the cores, plus these cores are not the fastest cores, so we could go to a package that has faster cores, which even at the same amount of cores, if I went to faster cores, it would still help if I'm going to do it all CPU anyway. So just food for thought.
It's probably the better idea anyway, since a virtual GPU, don't know how good that works.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of weird because, you're trying to route shit. I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, anyway, so the point is, here in this case, okay, do we like that the guy died? No. I don't like that the guy died. I hate that the guy died. I'm sad that the guy died. I don't want anybody to die. That is inevitable, though. And it's one of those things where you do things in your life that are going to make death more or less likely. Okay?
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Exactly. So, you ride a motorcycle with no helmet. Okay? Fun, exhilarating, all that great shit. I'm not going to tell you got to wear a helmet because you're free to do what you please. But when you die, because you're crashed without a helmet on a motorcycle, don't blame me when I'm not terribly upset about it. When I'm not crying at your funeral because you did something stupid. So the other thing is it's like, okay, people who drink and drive, and then get in car accidents and kill themselves. I'm sorry. Fuck them. Sorry. I'm going to say it that way. At least they killed themselves and didn't kill somebody else. Because
hopefully they didn't kill somebody else.
Yeah. So we know lots of people, unfortunately, who have been hit by drunk drivers and are badly or majorly or dead or injured, horribly injured or dead. So
our little brother being amongst them.
Yeah. So if you drink and drive, I have no sympathy for you whatsoever. Okay. I have no sympathy for you. I have no sympathy for your family. I'm sorry. You're a dick and you deserved what you got. Okay. And if you killed somebody else, there was a case in Houston, and my wife, when she was studying some of her poli-sci courses or some of her legal courses or legal ethics courses or something, they had this case. Okay, so what happens is there are guys in Houston. He's driving home with his two kids. They had gone to a Rockets game or a game of some form in Houston, right? So it was kind of later at night. They're going home. They get a blowout in their car, so they pull over. They're changing the tire. The dad goes, you know what? I'm gonna have my two kids, my two sons. We've had a great night together. We're all gonna get out. We're gonna change this tire together as a family, and we're gonna have this whatever thing, and it's gonna be a learning experience for my two sons. Great.
Yeah, because you need to know how to change a tire because it's basic bullshit. But a lot of people don't.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, and that's one thing. So what ends up happening is, as he pulls over on the side of the road, a drunk driver decides to plow into him, killing his two sons in the process. Horribly tragic. Sad. So the guy goes into his car, pulls out his pistol, walks over to the drunk driver who's still alive in his car, banged up but alive, and shoots him in the head. All right. So the cops show up, arrest this guy, and say, well, you murdered the man. Well, the jury, they try to convict him, and the jury says no, because he pled temporary insanity. And the jury was like, yeah, that's a viable excuse here, because he had just killed your two kids from drinking and driving. And although I don't agree with vigilante justice, if you kill my kid, I'm going to kill you back. It's just fair warning. Kill my kid, I'll kill you back. So, yes, in this case, are we sad the guy died? Are we sad that a lot of different things happened? Whatever. But, okay. The guy did the action that led to this. He did something stupid and led to this occurring. This wasn't a case where, like with George Floyd, where the officer had ample opportunity to stop and change his path of action and then result in a different outcome. This was bang, bang, momentary things, and it happened.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that it happened, like you said. But as I stated earlier, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
But apparently, burn Wendy's down in response.
Yeah. The other thing that has been going on and hasn't gotten a lot of media attention, at least not at first, was the Chaz, or the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. And dear God, this is... I'm not sure if this is the gift that keeps on giving.
It's so great.
Or if this is a pathetic way that our country is headed.
This just makes me appreciate Nick Williams Jr. so much more.
Okay, go ahead and explain that one, because I'm not sure what.
Okay, so remember in A Country Boy Can Survive?
Yeah.
Okay, remember he talks about his friend in New York City, and how he was a city slicker and he couldn't do shit, and that he called him hillbilly. Okay, these are the people that are calling us hillbilly, right? These are the people who love to say that we're hillbillies, and I'm watching them try to plant a garden, and they literally spread topsoil on top of pavement. They had 2 inches of soil on top of pavement, and they left the plant in the planter. They didn't even...
Wow. Now, I thought you were going to say something about Hank Williams Jr. because his daughter died.
No,
so that's where I thought you were going with that.
No, because it's just watching these guys. It's shit that, like, me and you, just the way we were raised, would be so simple. We'd be like, oh shit, yeah, okay. You got to dig more than a couple inches deep to plant a plant, for the roots to actually take. And 2, you actually have to plant it. Like, you can't just put it in a little plastic cup and put it on the ground and say grow. So these are a bunch of communists, anarcho-communists, who have decided that because they've always known how civilization should be run, right? All those times that Stalin failed, it wasn't because of Stalin's ideas. It was because of the proletariat, the capitalists. They came in and ruined it. It was going so well as 25 million people starved to death. So for reference, in case you're not historically relevant here, Hitler killed 6 million. Stalin killed 25 to 40 million. The number's kind of sketchy because Russia wasn't real big on letting people know what the shit they were doing back then. Okay, so Karl Marx is an asshole. Okay, so let's just put that out there. The theft of labor and all this bullshit, economic principles, it's all crap. None of it stands the test of time. It's all bullshit. But these people buy into it because they're idiots.
Boss is making $1, they're making a dime. They're jealous of that 90 cents.
They're upset because they think that we got it in our generation, which is a shit generation, by the way. I don't like our generation. Our generation's a bunch of fucking idiots. And maybe a lot of generations say that, but ours is taking the cake pretty quickly. We got this entitlement. Right? Like, I don't understand where this entitlement comes from. I don't understand where you think you're owed anything. Okay, you were born. Great. Good job. Now go do something. Like, okay. We didn't come from a big town where we had a lot of resources. We came from a town where internet was a scarcity. We had our first computer, I think I was 10, 11 when we got our first computer.
I remember going to Austin for the college there, the Lutheran college there. What was that? Concordia, the Concordia field days.
Yeah.
And Dad met up with a friend who had an older machine that he had just bought a new computer, so he was going to let us have his old computer. And so I was under 8th grade, so I'd have been 14 or less. I may have been in 8th grade. So 14, 13, somewhere in that time frame, which would put you at 10, 11. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just one of those things that happens. So Luke is about to join us, in case you are unaware. I'm gonna have to.
I'm pausing my video. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'm gonna have to figure out how to put him in here because I have no earthly clue. Okay, so yeah, okay, that didn't work out. Okay, so Luke will be joining us in a minute. So for anybody who feels like you're entitled to something because you were born or because you are who you are, and you think that therefore people should either A, pay you lots of money, or B, love you, or C, whatever you think, it's wrong. It's a wrong way to think. It's a bad way to think about things because nobody gives a shit about you. I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care about you at all. You don't matter to me. I don't like you. I don't think you're cool. I don't want you to do things. I literally don't like you. You're a bad person and you should not be around. With that being said,
talking to Luke that way.
He's not here yet.
Okay.
He said I'll be here in a minute. So he's probably getting his shit set up in his little room because it's very late at night where Luke is right now.
I was about to say it's 8:30 here. Good God, what time is it there?
So he's 7 hours ahead of us.
Hey,
so he's Eastern.
back on the screen. Woo!
He's Eastern European. Yeah, I
would say Germany's pretty Central European.
All right, Central. Okay. I mean,
he's not Czech.
No, but that's
not Spain.
Oh wait, that would be Western. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of it the wrong way. Yeah, Western European. It's on the border. Central European. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, well,
it's not like Europe's really that big anyway.
Yeah, it's not that. It's pretty tiny when you actually talk about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is that you're not entitled to anything. And guys, this is a rambling show because we haven't done this in a while, and we didn't really have any topics. Like we were like, oh fuck, okay, this is working now. So let's try to do a show.
Let's face facts. What's been the main news stories the last 2 weeks? Protests and riots.
Protests and riots. Trump's gonna have a
protests and riots. Oh,
Trump's gonna have a rally.
So I had a lot of people that I was kind of laughed with them and laughed at them at the same time. Supposedly 800,000 people have signed up to come to this rally in Tulsa, which I can't verify the veracity of that claim. But Trump saying, near 1 million. Well, 800,000 is not that far away from 1 million, but at the same time, it ain't that close either. And they're giving him shit. They're giving him shit because he's claiming 1 million or almost 1 million. And I'm going, anything over 750,000, you could round up to 1 mil.
You can justify that is rounding, and it's you could justify it and say, well, it's not wrong.
It's not right. It ain't wrong either. I'm laughing, like I said, I was laughing at them and with them at the same time. I was like, well, yeah, it's 200,000 people away, but at the same time, 800,000 people is a lot of people, man. That's a huge rally. Yeah. Now, the thing I'm not a huge fan of is the subtones of when and where it is. It's happening.
Well, he changed that.
I thought it was still in Tulsa on Friday.
It's Tulsa on Saturday.
Okay, that's a little better. And the speak to why I didn't like it, when and where. So there was a very large, I would almost say massacre of the black community in Tulsa way back when. And June 19th, which is Friday, is Juneteenth that's celebrated here, Texas and other southern states, of the day that the slaves finally got the news of the Emancipation Proclamation.
Boy,
and let them know. Yeah, I'm tongue-tied, baby. Let them know when that they were actually had been freed. So Juneteenth is a very big holiday here. I know it is in Texas. Now, when I was in Georgia, they had never heard of it. So I think Juneteenth is more when the news finally got to Texas. But because it's a celebration, other people join in to celebrate. So in Oklahoma, a large swath of it was, well, not a large swath of it, but a decent swath of it was Texas at one point. So it makes sense. It would make sense that the Oklahomans would celebrate it as well, being just north of us. So, yeah, the optics on that one didn't look the best. So if he changed it to Saturday, it's still not the greatest place in the world to hold it, but at least, it's not on a black holiday.
I think it's an overhyped thing. I think we're just looking for shit to be upset about.
The liberal left don't need much to latch onto.
Yeah, but that's where I'm just like at the point where we're like, screw them. I mean, come on, man. Like we sit here and we fetishize all this crap that doesn't. And to be fair, we give them the power to do this because we don't just look at them and say we don't care.
Yes,
it doesn't matter. This shit's not important. You guys are making crap worse than what it is. And it just is something that only you guys are upset about. Like, nobody else cares about this, right? Like, I didn't hear a large uproar against much of the black community that was upset about it.
No, I didn't either, but it did make the news.
And it was pissy white liberals who were upset about it. And
did you see the tweet? Did you see the tweet from the white woman that said, if you sound like you're a thesaurus, then you're a white supremacist because black people aren't as well educated as we are?
Well,
the soft bigotry of lowered expectations on full display, baby.
I mean, it's not soft bigotry, right? It's full out fucking bigotry, right? Like, this is why, like, you hear Joe Biden talk about
You ain't
Barack
black.
Obama. Yeah, Barack Obama, and it's like, dude, he literally just said
he thinks Barack Obama is like the first and only ever eloquent black man to ever exist.
Exactly.
Like, have you seen one of our Supreme Court justices? I mean, dude's pretty eloquent.
Yeah, I mean, I would stack Clarence Thomas up against pretty much anybody.
Yeah, that dude's a bamf.
Who is Frederick Douglass?
Who's Frederick Douglass?
Yeah, I was thinking that one too.
Yeah.
All right, hold on, Luke. I'm fucking with you. Why are you not doing what I want you to?
Better than the alternative.
Yeah.
Could have left that with out.
What is going on here? Why is this not working? Hold on, I'm trying to get it to work. Why are you being so weird?
Being the Kyle or the computer?
All right, that's close to fucking enough. That's what we're gonna call that. So, welcome to the show, Luke. Joining us from an undisclosed barricade somewhere in the People's Republic. We're gonna hope that his internet will stay in as long as he doesn't say anything that pisses Angela Merkel off too badly. He'll have internet access.
Oh yeah, I'm good to go. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And I have two ISPs. I shall have you know.
and they have both been known to crash in the past, so that doesn't always mean great things are going to happen.
Usually it's a computer problem. Yeah, that's a valid point.
So it's not like it won't. It's just like it won't happen at this moment more than likely. Okay, so welcome to the inaugural Virtual Machine podcast, which Again,
are we on the virtual machine? Is this the virtual machine?
This is the virtual machine. We are routing all of this, all the video, everything is coming into the virtual machine. So the virtual machine has its own Skype account, which is silent in this, that is just being used to broadcast us in.
Maybe we should rename the show the virtual machine.
Or rename the live stream SchuBros Unfiltered 25.
Yeah.
So we are literally in the Matrix at this point. So you have taken the red pill.
That's right.
And you are now in the machine.
Wait, no, that's the blue pill, buddy.
No, the blue pill
keeps you in. The blue pill keeps you in the machine. The red pill gets you aware.
You're in the Matrix. You're in the machine. He's aware of it. He knows it exists.
That's red pill, but if you're in the machine, that's blue pill.
If you don't know the machine exists, you're blue pilled. If you're back in your blissful state and you think the machine doesn't exist and you think you're living in a reality, that's the blue pill.
Which is in the machine. You are in the machine if you're in the blissful reality. If you're out of the machine, then you have woke up.
Neo still goes into the machine. He goes in the machine to fight whatever I can't remember the name, Mr. Smith. He goes into the machine to do so,
Agent Smith.
But he's aware that he's in the machine while he's in the machine.
Well, yeah, he's able to do. But yeah. Oh, okay, I get the point. All right,
he's jacked back in. Yes.
All right. So what were y'all talking about? Let's get into
anything, everything, and nothing all at the same time. So the biggest thing we were talking about is the case that happened out. So we talked about the Supreme Court case that was decided today, which extended Title VII over to LGBTQ.
Then we did the first 2.5 minutes of my comedy skit. Then we talked.
Very hard to hear.
Yeah. Which I watched all that. Yeah, and it was very hard to hear. Yeah, for sure. Like you need a better cameraman. Whoever your cameraman was.
I'm blaming my little brother, but I have a sneaking suspicion it was my wife.
Oh, well.
So I'm blaming the little brother.
Yeah, Ross, you need to.
Not that little brother.
Yeah, no, I'm 600 miles away.
We have a third brother.
You have identical voices, apparently.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Ross went there, man. Show support. Turns out, no.
It was Charles. Charles and my wife, and they sat in the back.
Yeah,
of course.
And videotaped it in portrait mode instead of landscape.
I mean,
then we talked about things I could have done better, and that parlayed into the Georgia shooting, and that parlayed into Chaz.
We're just starting to talk about the Chaz.
We were just starting to talk about Chaz, and he talked about the country boy can survive, and I thought he was bringing that up because Hank Williams Jr.'s daughter died this last weekend, but no, he was just talking about how we know better than to plant a planter still in the plastic into 2 inches deep of topsoil on top of concrete.
All right. Well, I want to ask both of y'all something. I want to hear each of your answers on this. This is something that's been really
42.
I've been thinking a lot about this over the past.
And his IP went.
No, I'm still getting him.
Okay, I lost your audio for a second, Luke.
Yeah, no worries. This is something I've been thinking a lot about over the course of the past week.
He just didn't want to answer the question, Luke.
Ross, are you a little scared?
I'm always scared, bro.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just go to church.
No. I want to ask y'all. So it's something that's okay. I'm not going to color this at all. I'm just going to ask you: do you believe in the concept of systemic racism, institutional racism, whatever you want to call it? Do you believe in that concept? If yes, why? If no, why? I'll start with you, Kyle, and then I want to go to Ross.
So this is a hard question to ask / answer from a straight white male's perspective, because I personally have not experienced it. I don't believe it exists, but then again, I haven't experienced it.
It's not hard.
If it does exist, the reason it exists is the Democrat Party, who's in charge of the media, who's in charge of, the House right now, who's in charge of all these cities and states, bastard. All these cities and states where all these issues are happening. So if systemic racism does exist, it's because the Democrat Party is perpetuating it over and over again through welfare, through abortions, through a variety of different things, and being in charge of those police departments and setting the policies for those police departments.
All right.
Yeah, so I don't have the ability to really answer because I'm a straight white male.
Okay, before you go on, Ross, Kyle, I was going to ask you by what evidence would you supply that? You did at the very end, so I commend you for that, Ross.
Okay. If I type a word into a computer, does the computer change the word, or does it take the input of the user?
Oftentimes it corrects fuck to duck. So just saying.
Okay. So the point is that the system is not inherently biased, right? The system is not built to be inherently biased. There's nothing in the system that is created to be biased. The people who apply the system are biased. That's not questionable. People are, of course, biased. Everybody has a bias. All people, regardless of skin color, race, creed, whatever, have biases. People tend to want to associate with people that are like them. That's just how people are. That's the nature of personality. But That does not make the system, the people within the system being biased does not make the system itself biased. So what we hear when we hear people say it's systemic racism is they're looking at that as a catch-all to be a reason to dump and crash the system and start from scratch with a new system completely, where we have reforms to make within the system that can limit the ability of persons to utilize their bias, right? We can limit the power people have within the system. Therefore, and this is something conservatives have called and libertarians have called for a long time, is let's take the government power away. Let's give more government power to the people, because if the government has less power, they're less likely, less able to affect their biases onto us. So we saw this with the IRS scandal. The Obama administration sucked the IRS after conservative groups. That doesn't mean that the IRS is biased against conservative groups. The people in the IRS were biased against conservative groups. Therefore, they were more scrutinous to conservative groups in that manner. But the system itself, there's nothing in the system that told them, there's no law, there's no regulation, there's no rules within the IRS code that said go after conservative groups. It was from the people. So systemic racism is a funny catchword that doesn't exist. The system itself is not racist. The system itself is a system. Systems cannot be biased. Systems have no conscience. They are an inanimate object. And attempting to apply rational thought to a system is insanity.
And when Bill Maher, of all people, tells you that your messaging is flawed, you might want to sit down, shut the fuck up, and think about what you're saying. Bill Maher is one of the biggest liberal mouthpieces that has existed for a long time.
He's an honest.
And he's coming out and telling you your messaging is flawed.
He's an honest liberal. Well,
Yeah.
we have to give him that. He's a liberal, but he's an honest liberal for the most part.
Yeah,
I agree
I'll
with
give
you,
him that.
Ross. Yeah. Kyle, I want to ask you this. Both Russ and myself are on the side of law enforcement officers. I want to ask you, do you have an opinion on qualified immunity?
I haven't done enough research into that to really know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Qualified immunity is when an officer can't be held liable for his actions while performing his duties.
I'll read it here. Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine invented out of whole cloth. Well, okay, well, all right, we already know this. This is Cato, so we already know this is a little bit biased in the libertarian perspective.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine invented out of whole cloth by the United States Supreme Court that protects government agents, including particularly law enforcement officers, who violate someone's constitutional rights from federal civil liability. This website is dedicated to explaining how and why, blah, 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 blah. So that's okay. So that's what qualified immunity is. I should qualify this by saying that it's from the Cato Institute. The Cato Institute is a very staunch libertarian institute. I wouldn't go so far as to say that they are anarcho-capitalist and therefore as such against the police in principle, but they're close.
They're not Ice Cube.
Yeah, they're not in principle against the police.
Okay.
But they're staunchly libertarian.
So synopsis of it is that a police officer can't be held liable for his actions that are unconstitutional.
Yeah. So basically, when he's in the field and he takes some sort of action, he cannot be criminally liable for that action to have been considered to be unconstitutional.
I would say that's a little bit of bullshit, because that will just lead to more bad policing if they think they can get away with whatever. So there has to be some checks and balances for the police. There needs to be something that allows a private citizen to go after either the individual police officer or his department that trained him or her, and put the policies in place. And that could be even the local city government or the county government, whatever it may be. Someone needs to be held liable so that there is accountability. So I would say I'm against it.
But here's the thing, and I agree with you, but here's the thing. Like, here's the thing that throws the wrench in the spokes on all of this. And this is something that I don't hear anybody talking about on the right. There's two things about on the right that I don't hear anybody talking about. One of them is unions. So I was listening earlier.
You haven't listened to us then.
Did y'all talk about this earlier?
Oh, yeah, we hate unions.
Go to the Facebook page, man.
Yeah, I posted about. I had a post about it 2 days ago on our Facebook page.
Okay, well then my apologies. I didn't see that.
Okay, but doesn't follow me on Twitter.
We're not the typical right, though. I mean, we're not big enough to be considered a talking head.
Yeah. I mean, y'all aren't. You know, y'all are more like constitutional conservatives, and so am I. I mean, we're all in the same, pretty much batting for the same team here. But when I say like most people on the right, I'm talking about like the Ben Shapiros, the Tucker Carlsons, these people.
Yeah, as far as they go, I have not seen anything about it.
I think Tucker talked about, because Tucker's a little more conservative. I think Tucker and Knowles has talked about it a little bit on his show about police unions.
I mean, to me, Tucker, I've said this actually on the show previously, and this is kind of a controversial view, but that Tucker is more of like a Bill Clinton era Democrat than he is a Republican.
He definitely looks like he's from South Carolina. I'll give him that.
I mean, he was on MSNBC for years.
Yeah, and a lot of his views on, like, especially tech companies and this sort of thing, it really is reminiscent of Bill Clinton era Democrat policies. But no, I was curious to know, Kyle, about your because I know you're passionate about law enforcement officers. You have family who are law enforcement officers and this sort of thing. And I've been thinking a lot about like the philosophy around policing.
You just want to come smack me down from our argument about 3 months ago, huh? That's what it was?
No. Like I've been wanting to. No. I don't want to pick that back up. I was just wanting to continue on that subject because I felt like that was a topic that wasn't quite closed.
And to be honest with you, you made good points, and a lot of the issues that we're seeing right now is based on the issues you were seeing. I just see it from more of a blue perspective because I do, like you said, I do have family members who are in law enforcement.
Right.
Multiple cousins.
I think we have to also remember that this is literally taking the 99.9% of cases, right? Yeah. 0.01% of these cases end like these, and 99.9 don't. And of course, I put it on. I've said this for a long time. I'm a 1%er. I think 1% of people make any group look bad. If you take 1% of any population, and of course you could argue more or less on certain populations, you take 1% of any population and makes that population look bad. 99% of the population is perfectly good people, but the 1% gets 99% of the news, right? When we watch the news, we don't hear about the 99 cops that didn't do anything today. We hear about the one who did.
Yeah, totally. But do you not agree that there is some sort of change that's occurred over the course of the last, 20 to 30 years with respect to relationship? And I'm not, I'm not blaming the police. Like like Russ and I are pro police. We are pro law enforcement officers, 100%. And in fact, I think a victim in all of this has been the law enforcement community, if you will. I think they're actually a victim in all of this. And I think it's a tragedy, and I think it's an injustice to our law enforcement officers and our system of policing. And I think that's a tragedy. But there's questions to be asked. What are the right kinds of laws? How do we enforce those laws? To what extent do we enforce those laws? I think these are valid questions.
I would have to also point. Well, sorry, Ross. I'm gonna cut you off because I'm about to go. I would have to also point that I'm used to living in a world that is, for the most part, governed by very conservative people, very right side of the aisle minded people. So Texas, Brazos County, Lee County, places that I've lived and traveled for the most part are typically right-sided or conservative-minded. So the cops there are trained in more of a you're there to protect and serve, and they really mean that mission. Whereas in some of the more democratic controlled areas, they're more of there to be a police presence because of the high numbers of crime that are existing in that area, in that population.
Yeah.
So my experience with the police is that more of that protect and serve. Now, I had an interaction with a police officer this weekend. I was traveling to Houston, was doing 87 and a 65 because, well, everybody was. And I passed one person and I got singled out.
Why were you doing 87 and a 65, man?
He's a bad boy.
Because I was going to Houston on I-10, no, 290. And
bad boys.
It's everyone else was going 80, 85. So I just sped up a little to get around somebody because he was being squirrely.
If everybody else is doing cocaine, are you going to like blow a line too?
No, but I mean, come on. So I honestly didn't even realize I was going that fast. Like,
you see how rosy his cheeks are tonight? He might have. We don't know.
I did drink a Shiner. But no, you know, I wasn't.
He's got some of that Peruvian nose powder.
I wasn't paying attention to my speed. I was paying attention to the traffic around me, and which you're supposed to do. So, and I haven't had a speeding ticket since I was like 24. So honestly,
Kyle's about to try to justify that. Why?
No, I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just saying, in reality, all this is going to do is lower my car insurance rate because I'll take defensive driving to get the ticket off my record, and my insurance
then be able to
get down.
Now we've rationalized it.
Yes, we've now.
How long is it going to take you to make that money back?
On
your lower car insurance.
Probably 6 months.
All right. So back to topics that matter.
All right. Well, hey, I'm gonna get going. It was a pleasure. Feel free to call me later, Ross, when you're done. I got stuff to do.
Hey, I just met you.
And this
is crazy.
Here's my number.
Call me, baby.
Okay, that was gay. All right.
My God, why did I ever get on this stream?
We wanted the same fucking thing, you know. Why did we start doing this?
Yeah.
Why did we create our website? Why do we have a Facebook page? I don't know. We're trying.
All right, Kyle, you're not even on the screen anymore. So
okay,
bye.
Y'all have fun.
All right, take care, man.
So, yeah, and I'm gonna stay about another 15 minutes. But I mean, so first of all, Luke, the virtual machine seems to be working, but I have no idea. I've sent you the link. The GPU is not working whatsoever. So we may look for one that doesn't include a GPU and just includes faster cores or more cores for the same price. So not really the place to talk about this, but one thing to know. But it is working. It is functional.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great. It'll at least sustain us until my new desktop gets here. Which thank you, Dell, for making sure that didn't take forever. Yeah. So when we talk about police unions, and I've been hard on Twitter on this for a while because there were some hard leftists that were like, yeah, you conservatives are the reason we have all these police unions. And it was like, no.
Bullshit.
Like we have been anti-union since the mid 90s. Like,
I mean, here's the thing. It's like
Bob Dole.
It goes back way farther than that. It goes back to the late 19th century when unions started to first come around. The unions didn't come around until the large companies were starting to use the club of government against the employees. And then the unions started to form. And then they were like, oh, hey, we can do the same thing. We can use the club of government to beat down the employers. And they've just been winning the battle for the last 100 years. And I mean, I've got an article pulled up right here, which when we started talking about this is a redstate.com article. This is called Unions and Racism, an Age-Old Institutional Problem Continues Unabated. So I'm quoting here from this article. Systemic racism in the building trades has been built into the construction industry, as Harry Alford, president and CEO of the National Black Chamber of Commerce, has noted. Quote, due to Jim Crow laws of the South, there were many black Southern craftsmen who would travel to perform their skills. Many would go to places like New York, Philadelphia, Detroit, etc., and would outcompete local white contractors who could perform or who could not perform as well as they did and could not settle for their affordable housing. It was because of this that construction unions in the North were formed to block out black crews from coming into communities and providing a better service for a cheaper price. Soon after the unions were formed, they set into motion the Davis-Bacon Act, named for two New York congressmen. This act set up arbitrary labor wage scales so that black craftsmen could no longer underprice their white counterparts. They all had to pay a certain price, prevailing wage, and a minimum wage, and competition became no more. With the price competition out of the way, the whites moved in through political favor and blatant racism. This would be followed with project labor agreements, which meant some projects would be declared, quote, union only. With the construction unions discriminating against blacks, PLOs would also mean, quote, whites only. And this article goes on and on and on and on to cite so many examples of this. I mean, minimum wage was first conceived of in the United States, in Detroit, because blacks were coming from the South, going up to Detroit and trying to take jobs in the automobile industry. And how did the unions respond? They lobbied to create minimum wage to price blacks out of the market. Minimum wage itself is a racist mechanism. And so when I jumped on the stream and I asked y'all, if y'all, think about, do you think systemic racism? I do. I think systemic racism exists. I think institutional racism exists. And the left created it. They created it with Lyndon Baines Johnson. I've got Lyndon Baines Johnson quotes up here. Like, dude, have you heard some of his quotes?
So first of all, it's a shame that Lyndon Baines Johnson is from Texas, because Lyndon Baines Johnson is the worst Texan that ever existed.
Yes, 100%.
I personally believe Lyndon Baines Johnson had Kennedy killed. I'm fully on board that theory that LBJ was behind the Kennedy assassination.
Go on, but I want to hear that theory because I've never heard that before. But go on, I want to hear.
I'm fully behind the Lyndon Baines Johnson had Kennedy killed. I'm also fully behind the Lyndon Baines Johnson had MLK killed. I'm fully behind both of those theories. I think Lyndon Baines Johnson perfectly possible to do both of these things, because
okay, can you continue and make your point and then come back to that, because I want to hear both of those.
So I don't think there's anything within the structure of the United States, within the system. I think there's people who have applied the system and have created methods within the system to create and further utilize their bias. But I don't think the system itself, again, for a system to be racist, it would have to be able to inherently have bias. And I don't think a system can have bias, right? A computer doesn't choose what to run. A computer runs what you tell it to run.
Yeah,
right?
But you can program it to be biased.
You can program it. You can create that into it, but that's still you doing it. That's not the system itself distributing a bias, right? That's still your bias being manipulated and applied by the system. So do I think there are instances in where we have created policies that have bias? Of course. But I don't think the system in itself is inherently biased. But the way I want to be sure about this is because when I hear people talk about this, the only way I ever hear them talk about it is a need to remove the system, change the system wholesale. And so I'm not against reforming the system. I'm not against changing the system in certain minute ways that will empower the individual more and take more power away from the government and ensure our individual liberties are more in stake and more intact. But what I don't want to have happen is that all of a sudden we start this conversation and it becomes, well, we need to completely change away from our free market, Democrat, our elected republic system that we have, right? Because then I feel, okay, well, wait, we're only going to make this shit worse by going that route. Look at what's happening already. These people in this fucking shit in Seattle are beating the crap out of people they don't like because that's their policing, right? Yeah. Like they're it's a protest against brutal policing, and their policing is to go beat the shit out of people they don't like.
Right, but if you're going to, and this is particularly important. I mean, you're going to get your PhD in economics, right? And you've got a bright future ahead of you. And it's particularly important that when you're going to talk about things as important as this, that we derive our value judgments upon a particular concept from reality. So we have to look at the reality of the situation. So when I see Ben Shapiro and all of these other people, whom I'm generally favorable, and they're like, oh, debunking systemic racism and blah blah blah. I've come to disagree with that over the last couple of weeks. Just researching, reading history, learning the facts about reality. Like, holy shit! Like, there is systemic racism. The left created it. It exists. They created it for a reason. Like, dude, here I'm gonna give you two quotes. Okay, this is Lyndon Baines Johnson. Their paragon of morality. Okay,
and his Great Society.
Yes, exactly. So the one quote. This is probably the most notorious quote. I'll have those N-words voting Democratic for 200 years. This is another one.
Now, there are people on the left who try to say that that's a false quote. I will say that. I've heard that before.
It's not.
I agree with you. I agree he said it, but...
It's proved. No, it's proved. Like you can even look on the shit-lived left-wing Snopes. They even admit that it's true.
Yeah.
Then another one. And this one is also true. Quote, these Negroes, they're getting pretty uppity these days, and that's a problem for us since they've got something now that they've never had before, the political pull to back up their uppityness. Now we've got to do something about this. We've got to give them a little something, just enough to quiet them down, not enough to make a difference. For if we don't move at all, then their allies will line up against us, and there will be no way of stopping them. We'll lose the filibuster, and there'll be no way of putting a brake on all sorts of wild legislation. It'll be Reconstruction all over again. This is Lyndon Baines Johnson saying this to Senator Richard Russell, Democrat from Georgia, the Civil Rights Act of 1957.
Do I agree that Lyndon Baines Johnson was probably one of the most racist people we ever had as president? Yes. Lyndon Baines Johnson was humongously racist. He was picked by JFK as a running mate to appeal to the Southern Democrats because Kennedy knew he wasn't going to appeal to the Southern Democrats because he was more moderate. He was more sympathetic to the civil rights movement than LBJ. And at the time, you got to remember this is when the South was wholly Democrat. People in the South did not vote Republican in the 60s, in the 50s and the 60s. This was all Democrats in the 50s and 60s in the South. So the argument that the left tries to use is that, in Nixon, he went after the Republicans and he switched the parties. Now the Republican Party was the racist party because they went after to win the South.
This is the switch. Yeah.
Yeah, the switch. The switch. Okay. Bullshit. The only problem with that is that George Wallace runs for president in 1972 as a Democrat, right? And George Wallace, the governor of Alabama during Jim Crow and the segregation movements, it runs as a Democrat. He's still a Democrat. He didn't switch to being a Republican, right? He didn't go become Barry Goldwater or try to flip over to that side. He's still a Republican. So what we talk about, what I've argued is when these people talk about this, we weren't going after the old school racist KKK member Democrats. What we were going after was their kids and their grandkids who were younger, who maybe were a little more sympathetic to the civil rights movement, who were maybe a little less racist because they had grown up around, more people of different colors and had experience with more people of different colors and therefore maybe a little different races. We weren't worried about the 70, 80-year-olds. We were worried about the guys that are 70 to 80-year-old now. Yeah. The people who were in their 20s and 30s during those years. So the argument doesn't really hold up, right? That there was this switch that the Republican Party all of a sudden became hugely racist and the Democrat Party.
That is a complete that is a debunked fallacy. That is complete nonsense. It's like as soon as the left woke up to the fact that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, they were like, "Oh shit, we got to fix that."
Yeah. So this is a story that California liberals will tell, trying to make themselves feel better, right, about themselves. No, it's not really us that's racist. It's them that's racist. And because Nixon won the South, that proves that that the South is really the racist. And it's like, this doesn't, in reality, this doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't, because it's not true. So that's very simple to try to debunk. But still, I want to stick to my gun a little bit here, that, okay, again, our application of the system is racist. But if we look at the Constitution, right, the Constitution is inherently built that all men are created equal. And now I understand that when the Constitution was written, slaves were owned, and that by all men, they meant white guys that own land.
Yeah. What they meant by that was the philosophical understanding of man.
Yeah.
So when you talk about philosophy and man has rational thought, man has capacity to think, they don't mean literally men. They mean man as in the species of human beings.
Yeah, the human race. Yeah. Exactly. So I don't think that inherently our system, I think our application of the system, and I think laws within the system are our application of the system, not the system itself. Like, we can write code into a computer, but that does not become the base of the computer, right? That doesn't become the bias of the computer, right? That is code that we've written into it that now is now being applied by the computer, but the computer doesn't choose whether to apply it or not. The computer will is not making decisions about whether to apply it in this case or that case or not, and it's not thinking about the effects of that. So I think the application of the system, yes, is biased, and I think the application of the system is in times racist. And I agree with all the counterpoints you've given that minimum wage it tends to disenfranchise African American and low people who would be willing to take lower wages, who would be willing to compete with their labor in the free market, and it deconstructs the labor market, pushes the power curve index in the labor market over to the supplier, away from over to the consumer in this case, which is business, and away from the supplier, which is people. Because we've seen that wages grow more naturally when the labor market is tight. Therefore, as tight as we can get the labor market, the better off we would be. And you pointed out, Hayek, Frederick Hayek. I've actually been reading a lot of his work, and that's one of the big things he pointed to against Keynes is we need to have a labor market that is allowed to operate within a natural construction of the free market and not try to manipulate the labor market with different economic systems that attempt to level the playing market. Because, of course, Keynes argues that there's a level of unemployment that's healthy.
Yeah.
Whereas Hayek said, well, we're never going to get to full employment, but at least by allowing the workforce, then the free market will dictate which workers do what, and the wages will grow in certain industries due to demand in those industries.
Yeah.
So again, I don't think the system itself is racist.
The system itself is not, most definitely. But I guess what my point is that the system has been amended and changed and manipulated so as to be racist. So the system as it was originally conceived in our founding documents, 100%, the first time in human history, this is the first time in human history which your life belonged to you. It didn't belong to the king, it didn't belong to the dictator, it didn't belong to the church, it didn't belong to anybody, it belonged to you. And that was the first time ever. It didn't belong to your tribe, it didn't belong to your race, it belonged to you. And since then, beginning with the Frankfurt School, it started to work its way over to the United States. And now we're in this place where they're kind of like, oh, it kind of doesn't belong to you.
Yeah. We've had more and more added to it where our liberties, and that's, so did you read about the Supreme Court decision today?
The LBGTQMAZ5.
Yeah.
No, I saw it. I didn't read about it.
Okay, so Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion in this case. It was a 6-3 case. Alito, Thomas, and Kavanaugh dissented. Roberts and Gorsuch voted with the libs to extend Title VII protection over to people with different sexual orientations or gender identities. And the premise here is that Congress did not specifically write into the law that it protected sexual orientation or gender identity. Gorsuch rationalized that by including sex, that therefore they're including your gender identity or your sexual orientation as part of that. And that's you can argue a little bit one way or the other, but he's arguing that the intent essentially was that you can't discriminate against people for who they are at work, right? And if somebody feels a certain way, that's who they are, right? Whether I agree with it or not, whether I think they're batshit crazy is another concern. That's not really up to me to decide that, again, right? Like, you get to be you regardless of what I think about it. So I think Gorsuch here is correct. And then he carved out a special little, in his opinion, a special little kind of niche for, okay, hey, we're not going to apply this to churches, right, or religious institutions. We're going to, this is for the broad stroke of because this is employment discrimination.
Yeah.
And what that allows is that for anybody who is a certain thing or whatever, right, that they can't be fired for being that, which I agree with this. I personally think it was a good decision. I personally like this decision because, again, they're not coming after the church saying, oh, the church has to wed homosexual marriage, right? Or has to allow homosexual marriage. They're not saying that. What they're saying is that if you go to work tomorrow, you can't be fired because you decided you love a person of the same sex as you.
So you agree with that position?
I personally do. I understand that Congress didn't write it specifically into the bill, but they also didn't exclude it from the bill, right? And I think it's pretty easy to see from the intent of the bill that it was to include all different divisions that you could possibly add and say that all of these are protected, that we're not going to allow you to discriminate against people regardless, was the intent of the law. And that by saying that sex and gender identity and all this are intertwined, I can understand the logic there. And maybe it's, I understand that somebody may be saying, well, that's not specifically what was written. I understand it, but it also wasn't excluded. It also wasn't, there was nowhere in the bill where it said, except to include these people.
So let me ask you this. So where do you stand in terms of separation of government and economics, government and business? Because this is, as you pursue your career in economics and becoming a scholar and becoming an intellectual, you're going to get questioned about this. And so you need to think about it, and, better sooner than later. So I'm going to ask right now. So where do you stand? Like, what is your stance on the separation of government and economy? Does the government have a role in telling what kinds of people a company can or cannot hire and this sort of thing? What are your thoughts on that?
I think government has a role in business. I don't think it has a role in financial policy or monetary policy, but I think it has a role in ensuring fairness across the board when it comes to businesses. And one of the things, like, the old saying is, why is there a law saying a 7-year-old can't run a grindstone? Because somebody had a 7-year-old running a grindstone. Right? Yeah. Like, at some point in time that was occurring. And so we had to make a law that said they couldn't do it anymore. Right? We had to make a law against price predation. We had to make laws against certain things that we said businesses couldn't do because there was a need to protect other people from the business. So when it comes to ensuring the liberty of the people who are affected by the business, right? Whether that be their employees, whether that be the people who are shopping with them, or whether that be the people in the surrounding community, right? So, like, I know there's a lot of conservatives who hate the EPA, and there's things the EPA does that drives me nuts. Of course, I work in oil and gas, right? So there's EPA regulations that drive me up a wall because the EPA's run amok. But the basis for the EPA, which is to make sure that can't go out and do things that are going to then affect the people in their local community, like, paper companies pouring chemicals into the river, or oil and gas companies, doing whatever. There are certain things that, okay, we do need at least regulations, because otherwise people would do them.
Do you not view that as being purview under property rights?
Are you saying, do I not see dumping chemicals in the water as being under property rights, or do I not see it as an individual liberty issue?
Property rights specifically. So in other words, like, you've got some paper mill, right? And they're being irresponsible. They're dumping their shit into a river because it's cheaper. They don't want to have to properly dispose of the harmful chemicals, which is a byproduct of their manufacturing process. So they're just kind of like secretly, They just kind of, buried a pipe going out into the stream, and they're just kind of letting that go out into the stream. And then it's discovered later that they've been doing that. What are your thoughts on that? Because to me, I'll just say this now. I mean, to me, that's a matter of property rights.
So there's that angle, yes, because those chemicals could then damage a person's, the people downstream. It could damage their property. It could taint their fields, whatever. But I mean, it's also an individual liberty right. I have a right, if my drinking water is pulled from that river, I have a right to not have water tainted because you decided to do something shitty, right?
That's still property rights, though.
Well, I mean, do you consider water private property?
You consider a territory private property, right? So like if you're making use of oceanic waters, if you're making use of an area through which water is flowing, this is a matter of the philosophy of law. Mm-hmm. Like it's a difficult issue. It's an abstract issue to consider. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but these are property rights laws. These have nothing to do with the EPA and all this bullshit with these government agencies.
Well,
these are matters of laws and rights.
Yeah, but the government needs a way to enforce that, right?
Yeah, that's the court system.
Well, and that exists. Like I can sue, but I can only sue after the fact, right? I can't sue before the fact. I can only sue once damage has occurred.
You can sue if damage is imminent, for sure. Like this again, and to the extent that the court systems have failed, is the extent to which they're not. I would say they're not intellectual enough. They're not thinking, and I would also. So
I guess I would look
that the regulations enforce that, not enforce that, but enable that. There's a factor of enablement there, where it's like, oh, we don't need to figure this out in terms of law. We don't need to send this through the court system and really determine what's going on here because, the EPA will take care of it. The regulations will take care of it. So there's this lazy approach to all of it.
I do think, for me, that most lawsuits are post-fact, right? That they only occur once damage has occurred, and that there is a need to try to prevent damage from occurring in the beginning, right? Like we have police who pull people over before wrecks happen, not just after the wreck has already occurred, right? We don't just enforce traffic laws once the wreck is. So there is a need for prevention. And while I will never argue that the EPA in its current construction is as good as it could be, and we need to just keep it going as it is, there's a lot that we could do to change the EPA. And I would argue that a lot of their regulation is overreach and is overstepped and shouldn't occur. But there is, at least at the heart of it, the need to have something where they sit and say, and also the fact that when we have these organizations, they can react a lot faster than Congress can.
Because Congress is agencies?
Yeah, regulatory agencies, I mean, compared to Congress, move at light speed.
Yeah, I would argue that's the problem.
Well, and there is a problem there because there is times where, and again, I think there's overreach within these communities. I think, do I think we need the Department of Homeland Security? I don't think we need the entire department. I don't think the entirety of the Department of Homeland Security could be wiped into the Department of State, and we could wipe out not any of the enforcement officials. We could keep all of that, but we could wipe out a lot of the managers and middle managers and have more connectivity amongst our federal side, amongst our executive branch. It's like the FBI has a counter drug task force, and then we have the DEA doing the exact same fucking thing, right? The FBI counter drug task force and the DEA, they're doing the same thing. They're going after the same people. Why can't we just combine these two, make one entity where they all go look for this kind of shit, instead of having three different fucking forces that aren't talking to each other, that all pull some kind of fucking shit over each other and try to claim that they're better than the other one. And they're all investigating the same people, and they don't even know they're investigating the same people. Yeah. So there's a lot of argument, and I like, in Texas, the Sunset Clause.
I don't know that clause, no.
So in Texas, there's a sunset clause that says every 10 years after a government organization in the state of Texas is initiated, that there has to be a independent review that see whether that government organization is still required. And if not, the government organization goes away, which is why the Railroad Commission no longer enforces the railroad, because the railroads went under the Texas Department of the U.S. Department of Transportation. So the Texas Railroad Commission no longer has a damn thing to do with the railroads. They are basically the EPA of Texas.
Yeah, but I don't know. For me, the point is that, you have the EPA here, and what property rights are they enforcing? Like, so you're going to get called upon at some point in a debate. Like, if you get your PhD in economics, you're going to find yourself in a debate, or you're going to find yourself defending your doctoral thesis, something like this. You're going to find yourself in a situation in which your premises, your principles get questioned.
Of course.
Yeah. So
for me, I agree with you that there's a property right issue. I do agree with that, but I also would say that I have a right to not be affected by you, right? And that extends beyond my property rights. That extends.
Right. But my fundamental question was, what is the role of the government fundamentally? That's the real question here.
So for me, the role of the government here is to protect my rights, whether it be property and or individual, from you. So if you choose to harm me in some manner or fact, whether that be punching me in the face, whether that be pouring chemicals into the water, whether that be, if you believe Alex Jones and you think the jets are dropping whatever the shit to make us all gay frogs or whatever. Yeah, right.
Gotta buy them water filters, man.
That the government has an obligation to protect my rights from you and keep you from violating my rights, because if not, this becomes the wild, wild west. Who's the fastest gun, right? Who can be the person to enforce for themselves?
Well, let me ask you this. How do you define a right? What is a right?
For me, a right is
not for you. What is a right?
For me, because what I'm saying for me is what I think, right? In my opinion, for me, it means that a right is something that I am given by God that allows me to act in a way that I see fit, as long as, once again, that I'm not affecting somebody else.
So let me ask you this. I'll pose you this. So what happens if another group of people come in, they claim a majority in some state or some geographical territory, and they vote in the rights of their God. And
the rights of what?
The rights of their God. What would be your argument?
Well, so by God, right? When we talk rights, we're not talking morally, because we're talking about the fact that I am allowed to work within my reason and you're allowed to work within yours. Well, your God and my God, irrelevant to that question here. Now, what that says is basically, for me, what our rights give us is the right not to be affected by somebody else. That's what I believe is the overwhelming principle of the United States, is that I have the right to not be affected by you if I don't choose to. Right? And you have the right not to be affected by me if you don't choose to. Those are what I think is the primary role of government, is to keep is that if I'm doing something to you that you don't like, you can call the cops and make me go away.
All right, so I'm busting your chops here. So
I know you are.
Yeah,
I like doing that.
So,
that's fun.
Yeah. No.
And it's good to, because I'm not upset about it. I don't want you to think I'm upset, because I like having to think. Now, we're live and people could be watching this, and there's always that error. But at the same time, it is fun to tax your brain and to look inwardly and try to rationalize a position that maybe you haven't put into words before. Right. Sure. That because you can believe something in your heart without knowing how it works in your head.
Exactly. Right. Dude, that was me when I went to San Francisco.
Yeah.
So it's like, imagine us having this conversation, but instead of me having these responses to you, I'm like a rabid fucking communist. You know, like that. This was like, yeah. So like, okay. So then my question is, okay. So if
we got like one more minute, because my wife's gonna kill me, because I said 15 minutes, 20, like 40 minutes ago.
All right, no worries. So
I know you took that Peruvian nose powder and now you can't sleep, but
well, yeah, I don't know what it is, dude. I was like laying, I went to bed and then I was like watching y'all stream and I was like commenting. I was like, God damn it, I gotta get on the stream now. So I jumped out of bed and like here I am.
I lost you. I'm losing you for just a second here.
Oh, it's all good. I'll tell you what, dude. Let's call it for the night, and we'll pick it up in the next day or two. How about that?
Yeah, we'll do a Friday night comfy post, and we'll go all in on it. So for everybody who joined us, who did watch tonight, other than Luke while he was watching before he jumped in, thank you for watching. If you're watching this on replay, it's been eclectic. I will say that. So it wasn't our Christmas show, I'll say that, but it's been a little bit since we've had a show. Kyle and I have been a little bit off for the last 2 weeks due to technical issues. And you know what? This virtual machine thing, although it's a kind of a bitch to do the initial setup, now that we've got it at least up and running, it seems to be working just fine. So I don't know why Streamlabs does not work through the server. I don't know. But OBS does. So
yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
And I have to say, Russ and I recorded HSP last night. So I woke up this morning to a series of very frustrated messages from Russ saying his audio was corrupted. He sent me his audio. And indeed, I was like, send it to me. I'll fix it. Like, I'm really good with audio. And the moment I heard it, I was like, yeah, that's not fixable. So we recorded actually. So we talked all night Saturday night, recorded all night last night, and we don't have a show for you. So sorry about that, dear listener, anybody listening. So we're off this week, so we'll do one next week.
So ZGM is as an entirety experiencing technical difficulties. Yeah. Luke, your camera just keeps going down. I'm not quite sure, but we're now looking at your forearms.
Yeah, I've been working on my forearm game.
Yeah, you're trying to show off them gains, eh, bro?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. Yeah.
So I've been getting my my isometrics in now. So I'm down 62 pounds since January.
Damn, man.
So
this is all on keto.
This is all on keto. Yeah. Staying under 30 grams of carbs a day.
Do you attribute? Let me ask you this: do you attribute that to carb restriction or calorie restriction?
There's no calorie restriction. I'm eating a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason that keto drew me in was that there was no calorie restriction. It was purely a what you eat, not a how much you eat diet.
So did you know? Did you track how many calories you ate before keto and after?
I didn't track how many I did before, but I can tell you that there's never been a day where I was like, okay, I'm at a calorie limit, or that I'm limiting myself on how much I can eat. Like if I'm hungry, I eat. Right?
Yeah. But that's a totally separate question though, because
I'm not saying
because like on keto, it suppresses your ghrelin levels. You're never hungry on keto. That's the beauty of keto. It's like you have.
I've gotten, especially lately, I've come home and just woofed down food, man. I've been real hungry lately.
You can be hungry on keto for sure, but
okay.
But there's your ghrelin levels are directly related to your carbohydrate intake, and ghrelin is the hormone which makes you like that when you feel hungry in your stomach.
Yeah,
that's ghrelin. That's your ghrelin hormone, and that is directly related to carbohydrate intake. And when you go into keto, your ghrelin levels are suppressed and you're never hungry. Yep. But there's so many people who are like, oh no, I didn't change anything. I just stopped eating carbohydrates. And it's like, well, no, you're just
I changed a lot. Like I changed a lot about what I was doing, right? Like I changed when I eat. So that I don't eat late at night anymore. I used to eat and snack late, which is bad for you because that keeps you keeps you going in the middle of the night. So now 5:30 p.m., 6 p.m. is when I eat dinner and I don't eat after that. right? Like there's no food after that.
So it's like time box. You're doing like time box eating.
Yeah. I'm not doing intermittent fasting. So
time box eating, but that's so much easier when you're on keto.
Yeah.
Because you're never hungry.
Because you get hungry when you get hungry. Like when your body is hungry, then you're hungry, but you're not hungry throughout the rest of the day. But the other part of it is like, although I didn't track actively how many calories I ate per day, but I did eat a lot. And the worst part was I drank a lot of soda. I was a big soda drinker, 2 to 3 Dr. Peppers per day.
That's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And soda is not only a ton of carbs, but a ton of calories as well. So,
sugar is the problem.
Yeah. It's processed sugar. So I cut out all soda. On January 13th, I have not had a soda in any form, diet, anything since January 13th. Now I drink the zero sugar monsters. They have 2 grams of carbs per can. And I drink one of those. I drink every other day. I drink one of those. And I do it because I want some flavor in my life. I still want to enjoy something. And it hasn't seemed to impact my weight loss. I've been losing 7 to 8 pounds per month lately. So that's a pretty consistent.
Yeah, it's a healthy rate. It's like any more than about 3 pounds per week, that's unhealthy. Your skin's gonna have a tough time.
Yeah, keeping up with it. Yeah, you're gonna get the saggy sin. And so and now I've started exercising a little more. So I'm running again, which I hadn't run for a while just because it hurt. Because I have 2 major back surgeries in my past. So, my back was always kind of a pain issue, but with all the extra weight in front, it definitely made it hard to run. It made it hard to do things like that, high impact things. So now that the weight's kind of lessened, my back doesn't hurt as much. I don't feel nearly as much pain in my back. I can run. I'm up to about 3.5 miles in 30 minutes. So not blazing. I'm not going to go run, make the Olympic team, but about a 9-minute.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah. That's a decent, well, you got to remember from the military days, I used to run 6.5 minute miles. So
do you have any like plantar fasciitis or like any foot issues and foot pains or anything from all that running? No,
that's great. Yeah, I mean I'll say it this way, and I know there's a lot of detractors to people who think keto and say a lot of bad things about keto. And listen, I understand that no diet where you're cutting things out of your diet is perfectly great for you because there's things you need from those. There's nutrients that I'm missing or whatever. And like I don't eat fruit because it's high in sugar. And there's a lot of vitamins in fruit that I could be using. But of course, I take a multivitamin, try to replace as much of that as I can. You do things. There's other things you can do to try to get some of that back. But I could tell you safely that the biggest risk to my health was not lack of nutrition. It was fat and being as heavy as I was. I mean, I was 286 pounds at 5'10". So I was I was in the morbidly obese range. So that was going to have more effect on my health than 6 months of cutting back on some nutrition to get myself down to a decent weight.
I think that's the key message. I mean, we'll end the show here, but like, I think that's the key message is that like, do what works for you.
Yeah.
Like, do what works for you. Like learn your body, do what works for you, do what makes what you're. I personally, I love keto, but when I'm at home and I have complete control over my diet, I don't do keto. I have huge gains in the gym when I incorporate carbs into it, but when I'm traveling, I do keto. And I call ahead into the plane and I tell them that I'm like gluten intolerant and all these other things so that they don't give me carbohydrates and all these other things because like I don't have control then, So it's like when you're traveling, it's so like keto is such a good strategy to just go into like a lockdown phase of your nutrition and you can eat all sorts of things that, you're not like, oh my God, I've got this buffet and I need to eat salads. It's like, no, you can eat, throw away the buns and eat the burger patties or whatever. Like, so when I travel, I go into keto. When I'm at home, I do low fat. So I'm always like, me personally, I'm always either low carb or low fat. It's one of the two. I'm always high protein, but like I'm never high protein, high carb, and high fat because that's when you get fat.
Yeah.
So it's like,
your body can't burn all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I my goal is to get to 190, 185. So I got about 30, 40 pounds left to go. And I hope to be there by the end of the year. Like that's I think that's reasonable. If I lose 100 pounds this year, like I think that's a success, right? I think that's an unqualified fucking success. I don't think there's any way you could say that wasn't 100% the goal.
Let me ask you this: do you think is your skin gonna like shrink back all the way to where it was?
I hope, but I'm still gonna have stretch marks. Like that's definitive. I have stretch marks that are not gonna go away. Yeah, but I'm okay with that.
But I mean, your skin can still stretch, like not stretch, but shrink, like back to where it was.
I think it will. I hope it will. And it has so far. I don't notice any, like, if I flex on my arm, there's no saggy, muscle underneath. It's pretty, yeah. I don't have those old woman, would you consider
the like skin reduction surgery or whatever?
If it did, I probably would. Yeah. Yeah. Just because I have the money for it, I can afford it, and I personally, to me, it's not that important. But I imagine for my wife, she would not want to see like oodles and oodles of flab just for no reason.
Well, the image of Homer Simpson when Marge is looking at him, and he's like all fit, and then like the bottom frame, it's like there's like rubber bands all over his back, like pulling his skin back.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where I'm happy with the diet. I will say, if the diet didn't work for you, I'm sorry. And people have different metabolisms and people's bodies work differently. My body has responded very well to keto. It's definitely something that I've had the most ease in sticking to, because and whether or not I'm just not as hungry, or whether it is that I can eat what I want to when I want to, and maybe it's just the mental aspect of that, like the whole psychology of I don't have to not eat. Right? Like I can eat if I want to. I just have to choose what I eat. So like I still go to Whataburger and I still get double meat with cheese. I just don't get buns. And you can literally order from Whataburger. I have the app. I order it on the app with no buns, and they just give it to you in a tray. It's everything you want. It's just in a tray. And
I love America.
Yeah. So
you can't do that in Europe.
Capitalism. See the need, fill the need. Right? And they're getting just as much money from me. And they're not having to pay for the bread, so they're saving money. They're making additional profit.
Yeah, you don't even have to pay for the buns.
Exactly. So we will end the show because we do need to, and because I said we were going to like a long time ago. But thank you, Luke, for joining us tonight. Thank you for quizzing me paradoxically. Everybody who watched, thank you for enjoying what we do. And if you do enjoy what we do, we're gonna get back on our regular schedule now. It'll be Mondays and Thursdays, 7:30. Kyle's not here. It's his guest. I'll let him tease it on Twitter. But do follow us on Twitter. Do go to the ZGM website. Do follow Luke on Twitter. Do follow the ZGM account on Twitter. And, you'll get to hear about all the content we're putting out. We put out a lot of content, not in the last 2 weeks, but we put out a lot of content normally. And, we're here trying to put content out that you guys will like. Sometimes it works. Sometimes we're a bunch of idiots. We do have the Him and Haw stuff now, so look on your way. Merchandise is on its way. We are in the process of getting shirts made. We are in the process of getting cups and mugs made. We're in the process of doing some of that other stuff. Stickers will be available tomorrow. So if you want a sticker, Luke.
Yeah, Ross, can I ask you, for, like, on behalf of the audience, what is the Hem and Haw? Like, what is the story behind that?
Okay, so you're very well aware that in the YouTube comments, somebody called us, what was it, morons and all kinds of shit, right?
The shit scrapers.
Yeah, shit scrapers, morons. Okay, so HIM stands for highly educated morons.
This is my favorite term. I don't know why that's so funny.
I'm still partial to dog-faced pony soldier.
I mean, when she called y'all shit scrapers, dude, she was arguing with me. She's like, "We're professionals and we work for the government." And I was like, "You literally called them on a public forum shit scrapers."
Like we didn't come to your video and comment on your video, lady. You came to ours. Like, so HIM stands for highly educated morons. So Kyle and I consider ourselves to be highly educated morons. And then HAW stands for we like to talk and discuss hunting, ammo, and whiskey.
I like it, dude. Highly educated morons, hunting, ammo, whiskey.
Hunting, ammo, whiskey.
That is fantastic, dude. I love it.
So that's our little thing. Him and HAW. That's what we do. We're out here hemming and haw all the time. We're just highly educated morons that like to talk about hunting, ammo, and whiskey. You know, we throw in some politics every now and then. We talk some economics every now and then. Stickers are available tomorrow. Get with Kyle. Kyle can get you a sticker. It's got the SBU logo and it's got a little QR code, so all your friends can scan, and it'll take you right to our website, take you right to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, and that way you can look at all our content. You can tell your people how to get to us without having to explain to them in 1,000 fucking words how to go to YouTube and subscribe to a channel.
And if you go to the website, you can see Kyle wearing nipple stickers.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah, that's totally on there. No, so there is him-haw.com that Kyle and I have now. Kyle's running that. I am posting some blog posts there. I'm writing some articles that I'll post there about once, twice a week. So if you don't like listening to me, my voice just grates on you, and you'd rather read what I have to say, you can go there. And you know what? There's the zero-gravity-media.com website that Luke runs. You guys can go there. You can see all the great Zero Gravity Media content there. You can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on SoundCloud. You can follow us on Podbean and what else, man?
iTunes, Stitcher.
iTunes, Stitcher. If you can find something, you can find us. We're there. Zero Gravity Media, SchuBros Unfiltered, Hardly Strictly Politics, the forum. It's all there for you in any way, form, or fashion you want to get to it, guys. We'll see you Thursday. Have a nice night.
Sounds good, brother.
I just keep calling on the help of my peers, but their success makes me distressed. Things will be better when I disappear, bouncing from city to state. Nothing feels great, I'm a committed disgrace. If I could get up, hold my chin up, confidence is just a bluff for the weak. Might take a peek in my self-pity to realize it's self